Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I want to talk about what I would consider to be perhaps the biggest retcon in Dragon Ball Z, or really the original Dragon Ball manga, at least up until that point in the story where this takes place. And this retcon is not only a big one, but is also one that very many people, particularly in the English fandom, are not really even aware of, or if they are aware of it, it's something that they never really even think of or consider because the vast majority of them started watching the franchise with Dragon Ball Z rather than Dragon Ball. That would have to come down to something that takes place right at the start of that, which is that Goku himself is actually an alien, that he has a brother named Raditz, that he comes from a planet called Planet Vegeta, and basically everything that happens along those lines, which in itself is actually a retcon based upon pretty much everything that we knew about Goku as a character prior to this point in time. So I'm going to be getting into the manga right now, going in depth and analyzing this retcon, and then we'll be seeing even more about that. So this retcon, like I said, takes place near the start of the Dragon Ball manga, or at least the Dragon Ball Z section of it, which actually in America and some other countries was separated just because the vast majority of those English-speaking viewers, or readers in this case, would have started with Dragon Ball Z, the anime, and so they figured for marketing purposes, let's put it all together, or separate it rather into different sections rather than it being the one continuous story that Toriyama wrote. But this begins, of course, when Raditz shows up on the Earth. He just finished fighting Piccolo, who he easily was able to overpower. You know, Piccolo didn't even get touched, but he's already on his knees, shaking with fear. And even his text dialogue is shaking, as you could see here. And then what we have right here is Raditz flies off and he says, "Have you lost your pride? The pride of the Saiyan warriors, Kakarot." So this is the point where we see Goku as a baby that a lot of people have referenced in the past in terms of, some of the things with Dragon Ball Minus, for example, not necessarily lining up because we do have what Raditz recalls for baby Goku, but that is a whole different can of worms right then and there. So basically, this leads into Raditz showing up on King Kai's, well, not King Kai's planet, I'm getting way too ahead of myself, Master Roshi's island. And hey, look, it's the thumbnail, or at least the one I'm going with at first. We'll see if I change that over time. And that leads to Raditz showing up, encountering Goku. And what happens here? Well, they see that, wait, this guy has a tail just like he used to have. And then he starts to talk about this and he says, wait a second, Goku, how did you forget me, our mission? You can't possibly have. Obviously, he didn't call him Goku either because he wouldn't know that name. What's happened to you, Kakarot? Did you take a blow to the head? And this is where the retcon really comes into play. So let's get into this right now. Look, I don't know who this Kaka guy is you're talking about, but I'm Son Goku. You're insane. It must be a result of brain damage, which is true. Okay, it's true. I've got a scar. Maybe I did hit my head once, but I was too little to remember. Damn you, but that would explain it. Explain what? What the heck are you talking about? And then here Master Roshi pops in. Goku, your grandpa's son Gohan, he told me once that he found a baby in the woods. A baby with a tail. He was a wild one too, that baby. One that couldn't be tamed by anyone. That is, until that baby fell down a gorge one day, hit his head, pretty near died. But he was a tough little monkey. He pulled out of it, and ever after, he was the sweetest little thing you'd ever hope to see. So this is referencing the whole story of Goku falling down the ravine, hitting his head, and basically losing, I guess, his memories of the time. And as you could see when we move on to the next thing, and that baby was me, yes, he was. And so, Raditz, he says he wants to bring him back because his people need him. And then we start to learn even more about everything that was going on. That's because you and I, we are the same. You are no Earthling. You're a Saiyan warrior, a member of the most powerful race in the universe. I guess he forgot about Frieza and some of the others, but let's keep going. No, it can't be. And I am Raditz, your older brother. Dun, dun, dun. Goku's got a brother, and he's an alien? No way. It's almost like Toriyama just completely changed everything up in one chapter. Oh, wait, that's actually what he did. You liar, take it back. If Goku's an alien, why is he here? And this is where we get into why Goku was sent to the Earth originally, and then Toriyama retconned this like 57 times. You may be sorry you asked, but here we go. If I can actually zoom in here. The answer is a simple one. We're a warrior race and an entrepreneurial one. We locate hospitable planets and sell them to other races looking for living space. But to make sure those worlds suitable to their future residents, first we must exterminate the native inhabitants. And then he goes on to say, when a Saiyan warrior is fully grown, he's assigned to the most difficult worlds with the most powerful natives. But first, we warriors must have years of practice, for even as little children we are, in time, sent to depopulate the weaker worlds. Worlds like this one. It's a lucky thing this world has a moon. You'd have wiped out all the vermin within the space of a few years if you hadn't hit your damn soft little head. He's very friendly to his brother, isn't he? Very strict, as Kwame would say. If this is true, all these things they say, then they make Piccolo look like the boy next door out there, kind of making jokes about that. And then you could see here it references that. And then Goku says, wait a minute, why is it lucky that the Earth has a moon? Is your brain that badly damaged? Only when a moon shows her full face do we Saiyans show our true powers, referencing the Ozaru. And of course, all the other people remember this happening when he was a kid, but he sure doesn't. He still thinks that there was just some random monster that showed up that killed his grandfather, until, of course, he goes on to find out during the fight against Vegeta that isn't the case. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's because your tail. What happened to your tail? Got cut off. No wonder you become comfortable around these weaklings. You, my own brother. So, as you can really see, as everything goes on, we learn even more here about how Raditz brings up the original version that Toriyama wrote of Planet Vegeta being destroyed. I suppose you've forgotten that Vegeta, the Saiyan homeworld, was destroyed by a collision with an asteroid. Our entire race reduced to space dust. I wonder if that's where they get space wine. Even our parents, your parents, Kakarot. And so he goes on to explain the reason why he actually won Goku, that there's only 4 Saiyans that remain. And then we go on to see this really interesting thing that's never actually expanded upon. We recently found a world, a planet, could be sold at a very high price. The locals, however, are potent. Even 3 Saiyans might have some trouble, but 4 of us, thank the gods. I remember you, eh? Even my long-lost, ill-trained, amnesiac brother should be enough to tip the scales. So, it is interesting to think what planet was Raditz even going to try and send everyone to fight on anyway. Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz, it seems like we're all going to go from whatever planet Vegeta and Nappa were on when they find out about Raditz's death to some other future planet. Maybe I'll talk about that in a video, kind of speculate, because I do have an idea based upon what we learn later in the arc when everyone is on Namek. But either way, this was more of a kind of a device. This was a reason for Raditz to show up to initiate the plot and essentially initiate everything that happens in Dragon Ball Z, where he shows up looking for his brother so that they can go fight on some unnamed planet we never find anything about. I guess it's Planet MacGuffin somewhere. And then, he goes to, show how powerful he is against Piccolo, which also sets up the threat later of the other ones of Vegeta and Nappa. And simultaneously, he is able to completely change the story. That is his entire purpose here, to change everything, shifting it from the mystical adventures, so to speak, of Dragon Ball, where everything's more mystical and magical and focused on everything in terms of mythology, and changing it into one of science fiction, changing the tone, the setting, the different mechanics of the world. He has the scouter. He's more technological. He shows up in a spaceship. He is alien, and Goku himself is too, creating that connective tissue to the Saiyans while simultaneously also giving him further connective tissue to Frieza later on when he goes to battle against him, taking on Vegeta and the other Saiyans in terms of his overall motivation to overcome, defeat, and destroy Frieza. So Really, this is in of itself a big retcon because, as we know, in the original Dragon Ball, when Goku was introduced, well, what was Dragon Ball? This was more of a spoof of Journey to the West. We're introduced to Goku, and, Son Goku, well, that's like the Japanese pronunciation of Sun Wukong. We even see him introduced alongside these monkeys in the tree, which is, in essence, Toriyama's way of kind of showing us Goku is a little monkey boy, as we could see with his tail. He is basically a more human version of Sun Wukong, who's going to go on this kind of spoof journey, along with bloomers, as it says here, Bulma, as we've come to know her. And some of the other stuff is inspired by Chinese mythology as well, as we go on to see, such as Shenron right here, the Dragon Balls. They even have different Chinese names for the Dragon Balls themselves that Bulma goes on to explain to Goku. So this is a very stark contrast to what we would go on to see here with Goku becoming an alien in this chapter, or, being retconned have always been one. Now, a lot of people have said over the years that they don't believe this is really a retcon. It's more of an explanation or of a reveal. And of course, there is that little shot in the anime version of Goku fighting against Major Metallotron where he scans them and there's like a little joke text that says, "Oh, look, aliens," or something like that. But there's never really any indication whatsoever throughout the course of the story that that's what Toriyama was going for with Goku, that he was an alien and that he came from another planet of a warrior species, and etc., etc. I think this was more Toriyama finding another way to take Dragon Ball in a different direction, a more science fiction based direction. The introduction of aliens, of spaceships, of scouters, of a number of different types of things like power levels, making everything go into a more hard science direction as opposed to everything being more mystical and more abstract and more magic based in the past. Now, he decided to take everything more in the direction of one of the things that inspired him in the first place, which was Star Wars, and even Star Trek, as we could see references to that in the manga as well. So it's definitely a great way that he was able to facilitate that with the reveal, the retcon, at the start of the Saiyan saga, which I would definitely have to say is probably the biggest retcon overall because it changed the entire landscape of Dragon Ball as a whole. Whereas Dragon Ball Super and some of these other sections of the series and the story have gone on to add more and more retcons on top of each other, sometimes creating massive plot holes or, disparities in the different inconsistencies, which I've talked about in the past. The fact of the matter is that this one is really the one that drastically changed everything, shifting not only the tone, the narrative, but the overall genre of the story into a science fiction based one from a more magical, mystical, martial arts based story. So that's why I would say that this is the biggest retcon in Dragon Ball Z, but maybe I'll talk about some of the others in different sections in the future, like Dragon Ball Super, for example. But let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments as to if you believe this is the biggest retcon in Dragon Ball Z, in the entire franchise as a whole. Also, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future, and I will talk to you guys later.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.